Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I am here to do my May TBR. Alright guys, we are already going into the 5th month of the year. This year is slow yet fast, which just seems to be every year lately. But I am very excited to be doing my TBR for this month. I will not only be playing my TBR game, but also taking part in the Whodunnit Readathon, and it is being hosted by Pages with Paige, Bookara, and Naomi's Bookshelf. So I will have all three of them listed down below, so you can check out any of their channels for the announcement video. This does start on May 1st, and it is a pretty casual readathon, which is good because I feel like I need a pretty chill month. So this readathon is obviously based off of the game Clue, which all of these YouTubers use as their TBR game on a more monthly or semi-monthly basis. And essentially what you need to do is fulfill a prompt for 3 characters, 3 weapons, and 3 rooms. And you can double or triple up as long as they are in different categories, which means you can choose a book that fulfills a character, a weapon, and a room, but you can't select one for 2 characters. As far as the prompts go, they are pretty broad. It is just the name of the room, a hall, a lounge, a kitchen, the name of a weapon, a knife, a pipe, a rope, or the name of a character, Mrs. White, Scarlet, Dr. Plum or Professor Plum, and you can just choose which books you think apply to them, and I will let you know which books I am choosing, which characters I'm choosing, which weapons and rooms I'm choosing, and why I'm choosing them after I go through my TBR game. Now, as always, I will be playing my Lezerin Egedishnisht TBR game, which is based off of the game Parcheesi. I will go ahead and link the playlist up above so you can watch previous rounds as well as the rules for this game, though it is relatively straightforward. However, before we get into the first roll, we do need to see if I need to start off with a punishment or if I get a reward by looking at if I completed my March TBR. In March, I ended up with 7 rolls, and the first one was a fantasy, and I was to roll a 6-sided die, meaning I selected 6 books, stacked them, rolled the die, and then selected the book that aligned with that number. And I ended up getting the 3rd and final book in the Inheritance trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, and I did finish it. I technically finished it on the first day of April. However, if I get more than 50% through a book by the end of the month, it counts. Up next, we had a romance, and that was to be an audiobook, and I went ahead and selected We Are the Ants, and I did complete this. Next, we had another romance, and this one was to be a mood read, and I selected The God of Good Looks, and I did complete this. Roll 4 was a contemporary, and it was to be a novella, and I selected Where There's Smoke by Cole McCade. Roll number 5 was another romance, and this was to have mystical creatures, and I went ahead and selected Daughter of No Worlds, and I did complete this. Roll number 6 was a contemporary featuring mental health representation, and I selected A History of Fear, and I did complete this. Roll number 7 was a sci-fi, and it was to be a cat pick, and I did have a reward that I could double up on prompts, and I did, and I selected We Are the Ants for this one as well, and obviously completed it, meaning that I get to start this round with a reward. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and head over to Natalie by the game board, and she will go ahead and select a reward as well as do a roll number 1. All right, everyone, I believe this is what the board should be looking like. I always do my best to set it up how it was at the end of the last game, but we will go ahead and look into our little kitty bag here to pull our reward. So let's see what we have in here. Let's grab this one. All right, so let's see. extra week. So what this means is that I get to tack on an extra week to complete my books, and I won't need to take a punishment. I could have used that earlier in the year, to be honest. All right, and we are jumping right into roll 1 out of 5. We're starting with a romance, which, considering I want light, happy books. 6, which means I need to pull someone out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're starting by knocking someone out. Of course. So let's see what we get. A romance by a Black author. All right, so for our first roll, we may have knocked out another player. So we do have to take 6 rolls now. But we did get a romance, and it is to be written by a Black author. I have taken this opportunity to select a book that was recently sent to me by a follower. I was very excited to read this book, and I get to read it like right away. How exciting. And that is Finding Joy by Adriana Herrera. And this is a book I've had on my TBR for a while, but my library doesn't have it, so I just haven't been able to read it. But now I am, and I'm looking for books to just lift my spirit this month, because last month was a bit of doom and gloom, and I have a feeling this will do that for me. We are following 2 men. We have Desta, and I believe he is heading to Ethiopia to be a emergency relief worker. It seems that he spent a part of his life in Ethiopia, and that part of his life was filled with a lot of joy, but also a lot of sadness. So he is a bit nervous to be coming face to face with all those emotions again. On the other hand, we have Elias, and he has been given the opportunity to study medicine in America, but he is a little scared to take this step. But he finds the push to possibly pursue that future when he meets our other character, and they have 12 weeks together. So I am very excited to read this book. It is relatively short, and the text is also relatively large, so it shouldn't take me too long to read. And also, I'm just excited to be getting to a book that someone gifted me so quickly, within a month. How amazing. I usually don't even get to books that I buy for myself that quickly. And also just to be reading a book that'll hopefully make me smile. And now we are doing roll 2 out of 6. A horror thriller mystery. Not very joyful, but that is okay. A 1, so we're moving this guy here. All right, so this is to scroll on Instagram. All right, so up next for roll number 2, we ended up getting a horror thriller mystery, which isn't really going with our we want a joyful, easy month, but oh well. And the prompt was to scroll on Instagram. So I did scroll on Instagram, and I scrolled and I scrolled and I scrolled for quite a while. Yeah, so it definitely took me a little bit to find a book that not only was a horror thriller mystery, but was also a book that was on my TBR that I could easily access. In this case, I ended up selecting Delicious Monsters by Leslie Sambury. And I am going to go ahead and get this as an audio book. So I believe I had this book on a TBR before. I almost want to say it was on my Heartstopper TBR, but that happened, I think, in February, and that was a very slumpy month for me. So I am really excited to have another opportunity to get to this book, because I feel like every time people talk about it, they say they like it. This, I believe, is a YA horror. I believe it is written by a Black author and features a Black character. I think it's kind of a haunted house story. I don't know too much about it, so I'm going into it relatively blind, but I am excited to finally have the opportunity to read this book, and hopefully I love it as much as everyone else. All right, 3 out of 6. A sci-fi. A 5, so I pull someone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we can't move him because he would knock one of his out. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We don't want to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's take this one. Oh, a sci-fi with an ugly cover. Roll number 3, we ended up with a sci-fi, and this one was to have an ugly cover. And I feel a little bad saying this, but I am choosing Seraph by Lily Mayne. This is the 6th book in the Monstrous series, and I mean, it's not like an ugly cover, but if this hand reached out to me in the dark, I would pass out. I would maybe pass away, because that is a little bit horrifying. So this is a series that follows people in post-apocalyptic America. 20 years before the start of this series, there was a rift that opened between our world and another world, hence the sci-fi aspect, and a bunch of monsters or aliens from that world came over into our world, and we kind of bombed them like a lot and destroyed the majority of our planet in doing so. And at this point, we are either living in large walled cities that are overcrowded, lots of poverty, illness, yucky stuff. The military has a lot of control and is also very corrupt at this point. And then we also have raiders who are living out in what is known as the wastelands. And each of these books, we are following a different main character and their romance with one of these monsters. They are all male romances, and I'm very excited to get to this one. I have to admit, I initially thought that this character would end up with someone else, but as soon as it was like hinted at that they would end up with Seraph, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So I am very excited to see their romance and to see how the story progresses, because there has definitely been some hints throughout this series that there are movements being made against the military. So very excited for this. I haven't read this series. I feel like it's been at least a couple months since I picked up one of these books, and I am very excited to return to them. The last 2, which were Moth and Gloam, were both 5-star reads for me, so hopefully this one is a 5-star read as well. 4 out of 6. A contemporary. A 2. So let's see. We can really move any of them, but let's go ahead and move this guy because he's the furthest along. An audiobook will be good to get some of those in there. Moving on to roll number 4, and we went ahead and got a contemporary that is to be an audiobook, and I have selected a contemporary mystery for this, specifically one off of my 7 books that will self-destruct, and that is The Maid by Nita Prose. I have a goal on my 2024 goal bingo board to read 3 of the 7 books I selected for this, and so far I've only read 1, so I figured this was a good time to pick one of these up, especially since I felt that while I may never get to this book physically, I could potentially get to the audiobook, which in this case I will be trying to do. So this is a book that I felt had a lot of hype around it when it initially came out, especially since it is featuring a character on the autism spectrum. However, once it actually came out, people were kind of giving it very mid ratings, like a lot of 3 stars were being thrown around. So my interest in the story decreased a little bit, but I still want to go ahead and give it a go. We are following a maid at a hotel, and one day one of their more prestigious guests is found dead in his hotel, and the police are suspicious of her because of her different behavior, and so she ends up teaming up with some of the other employees at the hotel and tries to find the actual murderer to clear her name. So it sounds like it'll be a fun time, maybe have some like found family aspects. So while my expectations have lowered, I am still excited to give this book a try. Roll number 5 out of 6. Another contemporary. Another 2. This time we're not moving this guy. Let's move you. All right, let's see. A beautiful cover. We got an ugly cover, now I get a beautiful cover. For roll number 5, we ended up getting another contemporary, and this one was to have a beautiful cover, and I am giving you a little sneak peek at my next 5-star predictions video, because this one is on there, and that is Ander and Santi Were Here by Johnny Garza Villa, and this is a YA contemporary story. Obviously, It has a stunning cover. I have loved this cover since I first laid eyes on it, so I am so excited to have it here in my hands and to be reading it and getting ahead on my 5-star prediction reads, because last time I made one of those lists, it took me over a year to read them all, so we're getting a head start here, people. So in this story, we are following 2 young teenagers, or I mean, I feel like they mention a gap year, so potentially they are like 18, 19 years old, possibly high school graduates. And we are following Ander, whose family owns a restaurant, and they were planning on working at this restaurant. However, since they have taken a gap year and their family wants them to do something with that gap year, they fire them. And then Santi comes in and becomes the new waiter at this restaurant, and Ander finds him very attractive. Now, I have to admit that Ander, in the synopsis, they were only using they, them pronouns, so I'm not sure if they are non-binary, but for now, I'm just going to treat it as such. But the story is going to get emotional because I believe Santi's family is not legally here in the country, and ICE gets involved, and obviously these 2 young people don't want to be pulled apart. So I am very excited to read this book, and hopefully it is a 5-star like I am hoping it is. All right, and what is hopefully our final roll, 6 out of 6. A fantasy. And a 5, so we take someone out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was close. And we do a word association, so I will go ahead and grab a random word and we will try to pick a book based off of that. All right, and for our final roll number 6, we ended up getting a fantasy, and this was to be a word association. I went ahead and just took a quick screenshot of the word that I got, and that is trap. So I decided to go ahead and select a book that was technically on last month's TBR, but it was only for my Aurelium reads, and I still need to complete it, and I know I'm not going to complete it here in April, so I'm putting it on here, and that is Angels Before Men by Raphael Nicholas. Once again, stunning cover. I selected this book because of the word trap. This is a retelling, a queer retelling of the fall of Satan, and while I don't know a lot of that story, I'm assuming that he gets kicked out of heaven and is trapped in hell, so I figured it works for that. Essentially, we are following from the point of view of Lucifer. He's chilling in wherever angels chill. He's not super happy with his life. One day, the strongest angel, Michael, comes to him and they form a friendship and something more, and God gets jealous. And there seems to be some consequences for that. So I am very intrigued to see how the story goes. Very excited to be getting to it. Since it is a book from my Aurelium TBR, I will probably try to get to it earlier in the month. All right, guys, so those are all the books on my TBR. I am very happy with that stack. But before we get into my challenge cup, which is seething back here full of demonic energy, we are going to go ahead and look at the prompts that I will be fulfilling for the Whodunnit Readathon, starting with the characters. So for the first character, I decided to select Miss White, and I selected the maid for obvious reasons. Miss White is a maid, and that is what this book is called and what our main character is. Up next, I selected Mr. Green, and I selected Ander and Santi were here because of the plants on the cover. I figured like a green thumb, and also one of our characters is wearing all green. And finally, I landed on Colonel Mustard, and that is going to be for Seraph. He is a military man, and the military is a decent part of the story. They are essentially the villain of the story, and some of our characters are ex-soldiers. Moving on to weapons, we once again have Seraph, and I will be using the knife. In this post-apocalyptic America, if you're not in the military, sometimes it's hard to get bullets for your guns, and so knives are a good choice of weapon. Also, the main character in the story is someone who uses machetes, so a knife is semi-close to a machete, though I would not want to have a knife going up against someone with a machete, to be honest. Next, we once again have Ander and Santi were here, and I decided to select the weapon of wrench, and this is because I think it's going to be a emotional read, so it's going to be gut-wrenchingly sad potentially. So that is why I selected this. And then finally we have Angels Before Man, and this I went ahead and selected for the candlestick just because candles usually have kind of this halo of light around them, as do angels. So that is for this book. Finally, for the rooms, I have selected The Maid again for the room of hall. This is just because oftentimes when you think of hotel maids, you see their little carts out in the hallway, so that made me think of this book. Next, we once again have Ander and Santi were here, and this is for the dining room because our character Ander, their family is the owner of a restaurant, and also Santi is working as a waiter at said restaurant. And finally, we once again have Seraph, and I decided to select this for study. When Seraph, who is the monster, is brought to the camp in one of the other books, the people there have decided that they are going to study him and look into his condition because he seems to be in a lot of pain and they want to help him. So they will be studying Seraph to figure out why he is in so much distress so that they can help him because they're good people. So that is that on that. All right, guys, and we are now going to go ahead and choose our next challenge book. I continue to be a month behind on this challenge while I have finished my March pick for this TBR, which was Beautiful Boy by David Sheff, a stunning memoir. Absolutely loved it. I have not started or finished The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. However, this book is also on my Aurelium TBR, so I do really need to go ahead and prioritize this earlier in the month, but it's chunky and I'm scared, especially since I'm trying to read like happier, lighter books, and I have a feeling that this historical book featuring a queer character who is adopted and not really accepted by their adoptive family is just not going to give those vibes whatsoever, but we will persevere. All right, we cannot procrastinate anymore. It is time. I'm so scared. I feel like I have so many books on this TBR that I want to read, and I'm like, will I have time if I pull some sort of giant chonker? All right, let's choose this guy here. Oh my gosh. All right, let's see. What's that? No. Give me a moment. All right. Okay. It was in there. We knew it would happen. So we have Don Quixote by Cravantas, which according to this version comes to, at least it's under 1,000 pages in this version. It's only like 980 pages, so we can handle that, right? Just 980 pages. No big deal of a classic story. Anyway, so this is a story about a man who, as far as I know, is pretty enamored with the idea of knighthood, and so he decides to set off on a quest to be a knight. And I think it's a rather humorous story, and it's pretty stinking long. And I've heard relatively good things about it. I mean, people really seem to enjoy this book, so I am excited to read it, but I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be completely honest. I think I'm gonna set myself a goal of reading about 350 pages a month instead of, you know, trying to read the entire 980 pages in 1 month, because that, on top of the other books I'm reading, is just not going to happen. So hopefully I can achieve that goal. I am excited to read this book. It is probably the most intimidating book on my intimidating book reads, so maybe it'll be nice that I get it out of the way. And hopefully I don't DNF it like my other 900-page book, but these pages are so thin. I believe Bible pages is what they're called. So yes, the cup did that. The demon cup has given me Don Quixote, and we will show that cup how capable we are. All right, guys, so here is our TBR for the month of May. We also have Delicious Monsters for an audiobook on top of all of this. So I'm semi-optimistic. We will see how much reading we get done. We will just have to slow and steady wins the race, right? And we will give it everything we got. There are lots of books on here that I'm excited to read, and I would love to know if you have read any of these and what you thought of them, and also what books you are excited to get to this month. As always, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!